everyone. Tina Hogan Grant here with my Cuppa A Natter that I like to do twice a month. I bring authors into my home and we talk about books, writing, life as an author, and whatever comes to mind. And tonight I am thrilled to have with me award-winning author. I can say that now because you just won an award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Robert Gwaltney, how are you this evening?
I'm great, Tina. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
I am thrilled to have you. And I do want to congratulate you because you just won the Somerset Award for literature, correct?
Yes, I did the Somerset Award for literary fiction. Very exciting. I'm happy that, that there are people that have enjoyed it and they think that it's worthy.
I have heard so many good things about your book, The Cicada Tree. This is your debut novel.
My debut
so congratulations on that too. It is on my list to read. I am impressed by the reviews you have received on this book. I've seen it everywhere. You are doing an outstanding job for a debut novel, getting the word out there and promoting your book. I've heard nothing but good things about it. Before we get into the book, Cicada Tree, can you just give a little background on you, where you're from, anything you want to tell us? You know,
Sure.
you don't mind being public.
Sure. Exactly. Yeah, because we're live, right? So I'm a lifelong resident of the South. I grew up in a small town in Southwest Georgia called Cairo, Georgia. It's spelled like Cairo, Egypt, but we pronounce it Cairo. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been in Atlanta for 23 years now. So by day, I work as Vice President of Early Education and Care with Easter Seals North Georgia, which is a nonprofit organization serving children birth to 5 who are living in poverty and or who have a diagnosed disability.
Oh, wow.
And then in all the hours between, I write.
I love that you work with kids. I love that. And of course, you're introducing them into books and writing too.
Yes, exactly. You know, the novel, The Cicada Tree, is told from the perspective of an 11-year-old girl who's named Annalise Mule.
Okay. And The Cicada Tree, I love the title. And I actually did a little research on cicadas, the cicada brood, before I wanted to talk to you because I was just fascinated by the title. I'm going to ask you about that. But apparently the cicada brood only happens like every 13 years.
Yeah, you know, so there are, so every summer there are regularly occurring cicadas, but you're right, there are these 13-year broods and 17-year broods of cicadas that come out from the ground and molt and mate and then burrow themselves back down into the ground again.
And this only happens every 13 years.
Yeah, 13-year, 17-year broods, right.
And they said that the condition has to be exactly right, whether it be a warm rain or a temperature in the soil of like, I believe 64 or 68 degrees.
Exactly. And it's amazing, really, you know, that nature has that clock, you know, the 13-year clock, the 17-year clock.
I did my research. I read up on it. Have you experienced a brood?
I have actually. When I was a boy, probably I was around 9 or 10 years old. And I remember Cairo, Georgia, my hometown, being covered up in cicadas. They were everywhere. Shells, cicada shells on pine trees. And I remember playing with those cicada shells, you know, like I described in the book, like the young girls play. We would put them on our clothes. We would put them in our hair. I know.
Oh my God.
Really creepy.
And they're really loud when the brood.
They're very loud.
Really loud.
You know, they can get up to such a decibel that it's the volume of a chainsaw or a motorcycle, and it can get up to the decimal, up to such a decimal that could cause pain if extended for a period of time for someone who was listening.
Wow. And from what I read, you might correct me on this, they're saying that the next brood won't happen till like 2028. Is that right?
I think that's correct.
Now, is that a big event when you know a brood's going to happen? And do you like stand outside? And
Well, I think that, you know, it's funny. I did know what was exciting is when the Cicada Tree was getting ready to come out, there was a brood on the horizon. There actually was a Cicada Tree tracking app that you could download on your phone to see where the cicadas were. Right. So typically, I mean, it is a pretty interesting event because, first of all, it's going to be very noisy. and you're going to see their shells everywhere.
And now, do they land on? I mean, you can tell I don't like bugs, but they're pretty big. These guys are pretty.
They are big. They're very clunky flyers, so they're not very agile. But if one happened to run into you, you would feel it.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I mean, I'd love to see it on video. I'm not sure if I'd like to stand there in person and be surrounded by all these bugs, but I was fascinated when I started reading about it. But then I didn't realize how long every 13 years. They're in the ground the whole time. That's amazing. So
it's remarkable. You know, they only live for just a couple of weeks. You know, they're nymphs that live under the ground. They make their way up to the top of the earth. And they attach themselves to trees and fence posts, anything that they can hang on to. They molt, then they mate, and then those eggs drop down to the ground, and the nymphs find their way, go right back down again.
Until this 13 years later. Nature never seems to amaze me. It's
remarkable.
Just amazing. Okay, biology class is now over.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I really wanted to ask you those questions, but I do want to pause for just a minute and say hi to a few people. We have a lot of people joining us tonight. If you just joined us, I'm here with award-winning author Robert Gwaltney. We're going to be talking about his book, The Cicada Tree. We have Tina Atkinson here. She says hello. And if you have any questions for Robert, go ahead and put them in the comments. And we will try and get to as many as we can. Karen Geerling is here. Elaine Sapp is here.
My friend Michelle Ann Waite. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, Michelle. Karen Wright is here. Lori Chasko. I do see a few Facebook users, which tells me you are in my private group, which is why I cannot see your name. If you give StreamYard permission, it will show me your name, or you can hop over to my author page, which is public, and I'll be able to see your name. Just giving you a little heads up there. Bambi is here. Mary Lapour, Renee Simmons, Karen. I said Karen. She's here. I love your accent, Robert, is what Karen said. I love your accent too. I think that's one of the reasons why I love to hear you read, because you have a fantastic accent.
Thank you. I see my friend Bambi, who says that her daughter had an outdoor wedding during a 17-year brood.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's crazy. So I guess they were out and about during her wedding.
Yeah, because it was a very noisy ceremony.
No kidding. Forget the music. Okay, we're going to talk about your book, The Cicada Tree. What I would like to ask you first, number one, is what inspired this book?
So it's interesting, you know, I actually started, the Cicada Tree started as another book. I'd started to so the Cicada Tree takes place in 1956, but I began to write a novel that was going to take place in the 1970s. And the protagonist was a little boy, 11-year-old little boy. And his mother was Annalise Newell Darlington. And so I was so fascinated with her. You know, I was about maybe 3 or 4 chapters into the novel. And I remember writing this scene where I think it was at that moment where I sort of found my literary voice. I thought, oh gosh, I think this is who I am as a writer. And it was during that contemplation that I realized that the character Annalise seemed to be leaping off the page. I was fascinated by her, and I just began to ask her questions. What were you like as a little girl? And that really was the genesis of The Cicada Tree. It was another novel that morphed into another novel.
But your characters talk to you.
They do. I know that sounds very woo-woo.
No.
But they
I'm
do
100% behind you because they talk to me. So you're not the only crazy one.
Good.
If they don't talk to me, I cannot write anything. It's just the bottom line. No, they have to talk to me.
I agree.
And I'm sorry?
No, I totally agree. You know, I think that's when the magic begins to happen. I mean, when you have an idea for a story, it's very flat for me. Yeah. And then when I begin to hear the characters, they begin to come to life. You know, that really is when the magic happens, because you have a sense of who they are. You have a sense of their backstory. You know, you have a sense of their voice, their motivation. So to me, that's the exciting, that's an exciting place to be in when you're endeavoring upon any writing project.
I agree with you. And what I love is a surprise. When you're writing and writing, and all of a sudden a twist happens, or just something out of the blue, and it's from a character talking to you. Those I just absolutely love. Does that happen
Right.
a lot with the Cicada Tree? A lot of surprises?
There are moments, right. So I did try. So I had a sense of the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. So I had a sense of the narrative arc.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, because I'm not a plotter. I guess I'm sort of a hybrid.
Me neither.
Because for me, so I used those as guideposts, and then I let the characters just tell me how to get them from point A to point B to point C without veering too far off the initial vision of where I wanted the story to go. But the most interesting things do happen, when you're alone with your computer and you're staring at the screen and those characters are with you. Sometimes some of the most interesting things occur that you never realized or had planned for.
Yeah, and when I talk about the characters in my book, especially with the series that I'm now on book 7, I actually talk to them like to me, they're real people. As each
Yes.
book I've written, I get to know them better and the characteristics and their traits and their bad habits. And I kind of expect where they're going now that I'm in book 7, but still, every book I get to know that character better. And with you, with Cicada Tree, as you get into the book more, you're learning more and more about that character. And do you feel as if, she could be sitting right next to you as a
Yeah,
real person?
I do, and I miss them. And I do, and I still think about them today. And I think that, well, of course, the book released in February, so I've been fortunate to have opportunities to be able to discuss the work with wonderful people like you and with readers. But they are there; they always seem to be there. I'm at the beginning of a new project, and so those characters are starting to hold court and talk to me as well. But yeah, it's very interesting. They do become real.
They do. They really do. I'm 100% agree with you. Now, the Cicada Tree is a standalone.
It is, yes.
You think because you missed the characters, you might write another book?
So the second book won't be Cicada Tree related, but I do have a sense of where I could take another Cicada Tree story. So we'll see. I
Never
want to
say
take
never.
never say never. Exactly, I've learned
Never
that
say never.
already.
Never say never. The Cicada Tree, how long did it take you to write it?
So it's my first
Right.
completed novel, and it's my debut novel, and I've been writing pretty seriously since I don't know about 2000. Just taking
Okay.
classes, playing in the writing sandbox. I think that if you sort of condensed um, time down, because there are those moments where you love the book, you hate the book, you put it
Mhm.
aside,
Mhm.
you separate from it for a while. I would say maybe about 5 years, and that really, I know that sounds like a really long time.
No, mine took 26. You're way
Uh,
ahead of me. My debut took
I don't,
26 years.
then I don't feel
You're okay.
I think that what you're learning, Tina, is the craft. That and there was just a lot of work that needed to be done first. To discover who you are as a writer and what your literary voice is,
Mhm.
um, and then of course just having that special story that you're going to want to stick with, because we all know that writing really is, it's just an exercise in perseverance.
It is. It somehow keeps me sane. It really does.
Yeah.
When I want to escape the real stuff, writing is perfect for that. I mean, I also love to read, which I'm sure you do too. Of course you do. But when I'm writing, it's always a toss up between shall I read a book or shall I write? And most of the time, writing will win because I
Mhm.
want to get to get in this book. But reading is also a great escape for me. When we're talking about reading, I saw the question and I'm not sure who it was, but when it comes to reading, what authors have inspired you as far as your writing goes? And then if it's a separate question, which authors do you enjoy to read?
Sure. So I think from early on, as a boy, I read the Bronte sisters.
Love
You know,
them.
um, I love Jane Eyre. Yeah, I referenced Jane Eyre in the Cicada Tree. So I think that those novels, the Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre, gave me a love for the Gothic. And then, of course, it was Truman Capote and Tennessee Williams who gave me a love for the Southern Gothic. Um,
Great
and of course,
authors.
yes, and I think,
Great
of
authors.
course, Well, one of my favorite all-time novels, which is most, I'm a bit of, it's a bit predictable, but I love To Kill a Mockingbird.
Okay.
I think it's just one of the most perfectly formed books.
I think it's a brilliant book, and I
Well,
cannot understand why it was banned.
that's another whole discussion,
Yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
another discussion.
This book banning business is crazy.
Yeah,
But I can't tell you my favorite all-time literary character is from Great Expectations, a Charles Dickens novel, and it's Miss Havisham, the old woman who was jilted as a young girl on her wedding day, and
okay.
she spends her days in a crumbling mansion wearing that old wedding dress.
I remember. You must have a fantastic library. I want to come browse your bookshelves.
Sure, come look.
Now, you live in the South, Georgia, a
Yes,
place that I would love to visit. Have you been to the Pat Conroy Center in South
I
Carolina?
yes. I think it was in March. I was invited to do an event with the Pat Conroy Literary Center at Nevermore Bookstore, and it was my first trip to Beaufort. It was beautiful. It's such a wonderful literary community. I got to tour the center. I got to meet Jonathan Hope. He's the
Yeah,
executive director. His
he's
whole
amazing.
staff, they're amazing.
Yeah,
It
I
was,
had them on this show one time. They're amazing. They are.
they are.
Yeah, but that is one place at the top of my list. If I ever get to the South, I want to go see the Pat Conroy.
Absolutely. You got to do it.
Yeah, I will. I do want to pause. We have some
Sure.
more people joining us, and I want to see if we have some questions for you. We're talking to Robert Gwaltney, award-winning author. I love saying that. We're talking about his debut novel, which also won an award, The Cicada Tree. And we have a question here from Tracy. Oh, no, I'm sorry. But she's putting up, reading is not relaxation after crazy nights in the ER.
I'm sure.
I wanted to click on Renee's question. What comes first for you, the character or the plot?
So I think that it's character. It's really character. I would hear characters say bits and pieces of things to me early on. Like there's like the tagline for the Cicada Tree is "Some things in this world are meant to burn," and that
Ooh.
particular line is a peculiar something that one of the characters, Cordelia Mayfield, whispers into young Annalise Newell's ear. And so I heard that early on. I heard that line, "Some things in this world are meant to burn." Also, this world is a dangerous place for a beautiful thing. And I didn't know what those things meant necessarily, but I knew that somewhere along the way that someone would say them. I just wasn't certain of the
You just
context.
sort of scroll away. And then it happened.
Yeah, they
It
do.
happened. That's a great tagline. I love that tagline.
Thank you.
Brilliant. We have another question for you. Someone's asking, where in Georgia? My daughter and grandkids live in Loganville.
Well, they're not far. I live in Atlanta, close to downtown, in an old historic neighborhood called Adams Park. So yeah, I know Loganville well. It's maybe not even in maybe 30, 40 minutes from the city.
Oh, not far at all.
Yeah, not far at all.
I like this question. Sorry, there's no name, but it's, do you ever argue with your characters? And if so, who usually wins?
So you know what? I don't think that I argue with my characters, but I'm a very intuitive listener. I think I listen. They've never told me something that they wanted to do that I felt was inappropriate.
Well, that's good. I'm
So
glad to
far.
hear that. When it came to writing the Cicada Tree, do you have a without giving too much away, is there like a favorite scene that you really, really got into and just really enjoyed? And
So I knew early on that there was going to be a party scene. And it happens maybe a little over halfway through the book, the Mayfield Gala, and I could not wait to find my way to that scene. I had a sense of what would occur, and I think that actual party occurs over 3 chapters, so a lot happens.
oh, nice party.
Yes, it was a wonderful party. There are a lot of interesting things that happen, but that was a moment that I couldn't wait to get to that. And then in the third act, there's a talent show that occurs, and then that's when all heck breaks loose in the novel. So I was really looking forward to being able to write my way to those two moments.
Oh, and did it kind of unfold how you expected, or is it a total surprise and you just went with what the characters were telling you?
You know what's interesting? I'm very visual, so I could
Mhm.
see it and I could hear it. The challenge is being able to distill that vision, and all of those sensory elements onto the page. So how do you go about telling those moments?
Right.
Um, so yeah, so that's the hardest part. You can have, having this wonderful idea, but then being able to actualize it on the page. That's the tough part. In a
Well,
compelling.
this is one part I I mean, it has to be done. One of the parts I don't like about writing is you've written the book. What I do is I write the book and I don't edit it as I go along. I just write. I just if I start editing while I'm writing, then I will never get the book done because I'll just keep editing. But this is what works for me. But then when I read it through as a total book, I find there's sometimes not just paragraph, but pages that I just need to be rid of. And I say to myself, that took me so long to write. Now I'm just going to toss it
Yeah.
aside. Do you ever have to do that when you're writing?
Yes. So the Cicada Tree, as published, is about 100,000 words, but the first draft was about 130,000
Oh wow!
words.
So you cut a
But
lot out.
I had to cut quite a lot. But what I found happened when I went back. Well, first of all, my first draft, when I went back and read it, it's sort of cringeworthy. Think, oh my God, this is just awful. No one's ever going to want to read this. But
Uh-huh.
but of course, as they say, novels are written in revision. But I think that for me, sometimes you can have these beautiful moments, but they just don't work. But there are ways to get you from point A to point B of a story. And so I had there were chapters that were in a way just sort of filler. So I was
Mhm.
able to reduce word count by just chopping away some chapters.
And still, you kept 100,000 words. That's a good sized book. How many pages?
300, and so this is the book, and
There
I
it
think
is. I
I'm
was going to ask you earlier to hold that up. Let's see that cover again.
327 pages.
That's a good sized debut novel, Robert. And for
100,000
5 years,
words.
that's excellent. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. There's a couple more questions I wanted to ask you. Not me, but our readers. Here we go. This is from Tina. Come on. There we go. Do you have a special place that you write?
Yeah, so that's evolved over time. There was a period of time where early on I had to be in complete silence. And then it sort of evolved where I actually could write in coffee shops. And I could sort of filter out the noise. And then of course the pandemic came along, and then of course
Mhm.
we're all staying at home. So I do a lot of my writing in this room that I'm in now, which is my writing office. My desk is right over there.
It's
So
beautiful. I love
thank
the
you.
pictures behind you.
So I keep I have a window behind me, but I keep it closed so I'm not distracted. I'm not looking out it. So I typically, in this office is where I do the majority of my writing.
Now you do work full time,
Yes.
so you're writing, I'm assuming, in the evenings.
Mornings.
Oh, mornings.
I tend to be more creative earlier, and I can work through plot issues. And sometimes if I'm not quite sure what's going to happen next in the story, typically I have those aha moments when I'm brushing my teeth, or I'm shaving, or I'm in the shower. A lot of amazing ideas come to me when I'm in the shower. I don't know what that's about, but I get up about when I'm writing. I'll get up about 4:30 in the morning.
Oh my goodness.
I'll have my coffee. I'll go sit down at my desk, and I'll write a couple of hours until it's time for me to begin to get ready for work. So about from 4:30 to 6:30, I'll write. And then of course weekends are prime writing time for me as well.
Now, do you try and write every day?
I do try. I don't always, it doesn't always happen.
Right.
But I'm at the very beginning of a new project, so I'm trying to recondition my body so I can be
And
up
your
at
mind.
4:30 in my mind.
That's your
Exactly.
mind. I hear you. I try and write every day, but like you, it doesn't happen. But I'm very hard on myself when it doesn't happen. In my head, I'm just disciplining myself or telling
Yeah,
myself off, like, why didn't you just give yourself an hour? Why didn't you give you? And I really have to stop that because life just gets in the way and
it
other
does.
things need to get done. But I am very hard on myself if I don't write every day. But it's not easy. It's
Yeah.
not easy. Do you set yourself a goal of, say, words when you do sit down, or you just
I
write?
I don't typically, just whatever I can make happen. I have a really bad habit of revising as I go, which is not a good habit. I should just
I don't.
write the story, but it's hard for me not to hone it
Yeah.
um, as I go. But I
Yeah.
don't typically know. Like sometimes I will play these mind games on the weekend when I'm writing. I cannot get my behind up from the desk until like 10 o'clock. Then I can take a break.
Well, there you go.
Um,
That's a
yeah,
good
so
goal.
I will sort of play these mind tricks.
That's a good goal. I like that. Yeah. With me, I don't do the revision. I said I just can't do that because otherwise I'm just revising the whole time. But what I like to do is I'll read the last chapter I wrote, and that gets me
Yeah,
back into the story. But I did try the revision, but it's whatever works for anyone. We all have different writing techniques, and we have to do what works for us and what
exactly.
makes
I
our
agree.
writing flow. But I see the time, and I'm excited about this. We're gonna take a little break because you're gonna give us a treat and read us an excerpt from the Cicada Tree.
Yes.
I love hearing you read, so I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay. So this particular scene is between the protagonist, 11-year-old Annalise Newell, and her young friend Etta Mae, who's 10. And they're in this place they call their mama's old thinking spot, and it's sort of an untended garden. And this is the first time that Annalise tastes whiskey, Old Crow whiskey, which is the whiskey that her father drinks. A slant of sun cut through the oak's branches, catching light in the bottle, sparking in the hooch. It's pretty, I said, like your granny's eyes, butterscotch, the color of trouble. I gave the bottle a shake and screwed off the top. Etta Mae squeezed my knee. What are you fixing to do? Never you mind, I said, lifting the bottle to my nose. I'm just smelling it. The scent was not near about as unpleasant as expected, a different kind of smell coming straight out of the bottle than from Daddy's breath, from the recipe of whiskey and aftershave leaking from his skin. You want a sniff? Etta Mae leaned away from me, swatting at the bottle. You're going to get us killed, she said, looking over her shoulder to the house. If Granny catches us with that, we won't be sitting down till the sweet Lord calls us back to glory. I'm not scared of her, I said, passing the bottle beneath my nose. That's mighty big talk, Etta Mae said, knocking and grabbing for the bottle. The cicada chorus rose up, worrying at me, prodding me along. I wonder what all the hullabaloo's about, I said, holding that old crow just out of Etta Mae's reach. Perhaps it was the color of butterscotch that made me do it, hypnotizing me like a carnival gypsy, or the hysterical screech of that cicada song. Or maybe it was both, tricking and taunting me to tip back that bottle and take a greedy gulp. Etta Mae yelled, Stop! Hush up, I said, shutting my eyes, taking in the slow burn trailing down my throat, the scorch spreading across my insides. Like the smell, the taste was not as troublesome as I imagined, better than castor oil or a swallowed down scoop of mentholatum. Etta Mae squeezed my wrist, agitating the place the fern stem choked. Are you crazy? Might be, I said, opening my eyes. Hard to know. You drunk yet? She whispered, leaning into me, scrutinizing me from one end to the other. Don't be silly. It takes more than a little old sip to get drunk. Truth be told, I did feel woozy, like the end of a good spin on a tire swing. Feel any different? I took another swig. A little, I whispered. You want some? The devil's done grabbed hold of you. She slapped in my hand. Don't send him chasing after me. I screwed the top of the bottle back on and motioned for Etta Mae to sit down on the ground next to me. I lay my head in her lap, the whiskey bottle rising and falling on my belly. Up into the big oak's branches I blinked, the sun weaving through, crocheting lace doilies all around. Fiddle with my hair sweet like and sing me something nice, I said, in a sleepy time voice. Okay, but not another sip. Promise? Promise. Etta made curl strands of my hair around her fingers, turning it loose to tickle my cheeks. The old crow fanned his fire-lit wings, heating my insides, smoking and clouding my mind, a sweet, slow sort of burn. Could this be how it felt to be Daddy? Floating and bobbing. And when was it the meanness would come? Might it be quick like a hiccup? I imagined Daddy laying there beside me, both of us with fire in our chests. Without a word, we share secrets, the whiskey bottle tipping to Daddy's lips and to mine. There on the dandelion bed, the smut grass poking up all around. Understanding takes root, that a bad thing can be good, that salvation is the tricky color of butterscotch, that rapture is pain. Etta May started up singing, her angel voice and the whiskey casting a spell upon me, nudging big shimmery tears to swell and spill from the corners of my eyes. Above us, the sun turned lazy, slouching in the sky. 3 shadows faded into the weeds deep down beneath the earthworms, to dark, cool places, far from the caw and burn and scratch of that old garden crow.
Wow, I could listen to you all day. Can you keep reading? I'm going to put up some of these comments. I was looking at the comments while you were reading. Let me see. Here's one right here. Hold on. Okay, sorry. Wrong one. But you got some wonderful.
Oh, Linda Martin. Hey, Linda. Linda is a beautifully supportive reader and supportive authors, and she actually came to my book launch in Atlanta with her husband.
Now, who is this again? I'm sorry.
Linda Martin. She is she's a huge supporter of readers and authors.
This right here?
Yes. Yeah, Linda was just saying Janelle Jackson, yes, right. But I don't know what Janelle Jackson said.
No, that was a beautiful reading. Thank you so much. Tina said she loves it. I'm going to put up some comments. I love listening to you read. Karen Wright says, amazing excerpt, so intriguing and interesting sounding. These girls are something else. Here's a cute one. Robert, will you narrate my life?
Sure.
Is your book available on audio?
It is not. I could have a conversation with the publisher about whether or not we might like to do that. And it's something we might do. Certainly.
If you do, will you be narrating it?
It's interesting. I had an event in up in Blairsville, Georgia, in the North Georgia mountains this weekend, at Bookbound Bookstore. And there were readers, there's the members of a book club who asked me the same question. And I thought for some reason that if it were to be an audiobook, that I would have, a woman narrate, since it's told from the perspective of a girl. But it's funny, and it was women who said, you know what, I think you should read it, which I thought was interesting.
I'm game, and I think all of our audience would agree, because all of them are saying how much they love your voice and love to hear you read. So I think unanimously, if you were to make an audio, I think you got the job.
Thank you.
I love the accent.
I hope I pay well.
I hope so, right? What genre would you say Cicada Tree is?
So it's Southern fiction, and I say that it has Gothic tendencies, elements of magical realism. So it does cross genre a bit. I mean, obviously it's squarely right in the middle of being literary Southern fiction, but it has those elements of the Gothic and magical realism. And go ahead.
I'm sorry. And your work the work you're currently working on, is that taken in Georgia also, Southern fiction?
Yes. So I'm working on a project that takes place in 1931 on a remote Georgia coastal barrier island. And it's told from the perspective of a 14-year-old girl. And it's Southern fiction with elements of the Southern Gothic and magical realism. So
with these both books, I'm going to jump here. The next book that you're writing, do you have a title for it yet or no?
Yeah, so the working title is Sing Down the Moon.
Sing as in S-I-N-G? Mm-hmm. Oh, nice title. I like that.
Sing Down the Moon.
But you don't know if it's going to stick yet. because sometimes titles work.
Right. Well, so that is so Sing Down the Moon is coming from a bit of dialogue I think a character is going to say. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah,
see, just
yeah,
like your taglines.
yeah. I think, she says, one of these days I'm gonna sing down that moon.
Do you have a release date?
No, so there's no contract. So really what will happen is that I will finish up the first 50 pages. I'll write a synopsis and I'll send it to my agent. And
All right.
here I've talked him through the story and he's intrigued. So I'll have him give me notes, whether he thinks I'm on track or off track. And then I'll take those notes and I'll write the novel. And hopefully at the end of when it's all said and done and I've got a good draft and he thinks that it's something he would like to send out into the world, then he will put it out into submission.
Oh, I wish you luck. I love the title. I mean, if it's anything like what I've been hearing about the Cicada Tree, I'm sure it's going to be out there in no time at all. Now, both books, this one, the Cicada Tree is set in the 1950s.
Yes.
The latest book is set in the 1930s, which means you have to do some research.
You do. It's funny. People will refer to the Cicada Tree as historical fiction, and I don't. For me, within historical fiction, that the story does take place within a historical period, the time is not really a character as much as place is.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it in the Cicada Tree. Of course, I did have to research aspects of technology and maybe some of the language, like for instance, in fashion. So within the novel, which was a lot of fun. So there's a character, Cordelia Mayfield, who's a matriarch of a wealthy family, a family that Annalise Newell, the protagonist, is obsessed over. And so Cordelia Mayfield wears Christian Dior 24/7. So everything that she wore actually was based on a real Christian Dior design from that time period.
From that period.
Yeah.
See, I love historical fiction, and I've been asked would I ever write it. I love to read it, but to write it scares me because of the research. And for me, my fear is if I don't do the research 100%, someone's going to call me on it.
They will, and they will.
And they will.
They will. They will do it. It's what I loved is so the Cicada Tree takes place in a fictitious town in Southwest Georgia I called Providence, Georgia. So I was able to world build. I didn't actually put it in an existing place. That way I didn't have to worry about whether or not that place was next door to this place or, because people
it's your world.
It's my world. It can be anything that I want it to be.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. And you spent all your life in Georgia.
Yes. So there was a brief couple of years. So my mom and dad still reside in Cairo, Georgia, the place that I grew up in.
Oh, wow.
But my dad was in the Army. So my mom so I actually was born in the Netherlands. I lived in Germany for just a couple of years. I have no memory of the time overseas. But when my parents moved back to Cairo, Georgia when I was a little thing. And so from there, I've lived my entire life in the South and in Georgia. Well, I went to school in Florida. I attended Florida State University, which of course is the South. But my whole life is the South.
Okay. So do you think you'll always write Southern fiction books?
You're asking me that question today, and I will say yes. But what I do know is that for me, I think that as writers, or you hope that you're constantly evolving, and that you will continue to grow as a writer. I'm not as good as I hope as I want to be, and I'm going to keep striving to be better. And it's funny because I was quite a different person at the beginning of writing the Cicada Tree, and was quite another person at the conclusion of writing the Cicada Tree.
Well, you've grown. You've grown.
Yeah, you've grown.
Totally grown.
And that's what So right now, I love the South, and I love that element of storytelling. So I can foresee myself writing what I know for the rest of my life. Now,
and that's what they say do. They say write what you know.
Write what
If down the road you want to not break away, but try something different. Is there a genre that interests you to try and write?
So I do love stories with elements of magical realism that aren't necessarily set in the South.
Mm-hmm.
So literary fiction with sort of those mystical, magical elements to them, I think. But I think that what I'm writing from a tone perspective is what I love to read. When I set out to write the Cicada Tree, my goal was to write the book I've been looking for all my life and haven't been able to find.
Perfect. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's my approach. And I think that if, as a writer, for me, I didn't write toward what I thought might be commercially viable, which is probably stupid.
No.
But I hope that if I wrote what I love, that there would be an audience for it.
And I think you have a huge audience. You've got quite a following. And like I said before, the reviews for your book for debut is outstanding. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And I see your book everywhere. So whatever you're doing is working.
Thank you. Well, it's because, I have wonderful supporters like you and all the individuals that are on this evening who take the time to stop and listen and to pay the book a little bit of attention. It certainly goes a long way. There's Bambi and there's Michelle and there's Linda, who I see that are on. Wonderful supporters of authors, and it means the world, when you're a debut author, no one knows who in the heck you are.
Right. And you've done a fantastic job of getting yourself known and getting yourself out there, because once we write the book and it's published, now it's time to market it.
Yes. I suffered this ridiculous delusion that you just write a good book and people will find their way to it.
Not. That out real quick, huh?
Yeah, very quickly. Well, and that's the thing, I'm learning still. There was so much I didn't know going into this process. I had no idea what it would take to get a book out into the world.
It's a constant learning curve. I'm on, book 11, which I'm writing right now, but I'm still learning. And I'm still learning from mistakes too. There's been mistakes along the way. Some I'm not even going to talk about because it's like just stupid, but we're constantly learning. We're constantly learning from the mistakes. And I think we will continue. And also technology changes. I get used to something and then 2 books later, that doesn't work anymore. I got to do this now. Or another app just showed up. And now I've got to appear on that social media platform. And it's just like,
right.
All I want to do is write.
I know. That's the interesting thing about the time we're in now is that not only do you have to write a good book, but because of social media, there's you have to be a personality also.
You do. And people have this image of an author just being in their office, quiet, secluded. My father was like that. My dad was an author, and he was an introvert. And he he came to our wedding, our wedding, and he sat there behind a book because he just didn't know how to socialize. Yeah. And nothing against my dad, but he felt comfort when he was writing and when he was reading a book. And he came out of his shell when he was amongst his people at science fiction conventions, and you just couldn't shut him up, So yeah, this social media for a lot of authors is difficult. Yeah. It's difficult. It really is. And I didn't start doing these chats until the pandemic because I still wanted to get myself out there. I couldn't do the book signings. I couldn't be out in public. So I started doing this, and I just love doing them and keep doing them.
Yeah, you're right. There's something new all the time. There's like the TikTok and the book talk, and I'm just sort of sticking to Facebook and to Instagram for now, and then maybe I'll branch out. But I'm able to manage Facebook and I'm able to manage Instagram, but I think anything else on top of that would just be overwhelming for me.
Yeah, Facebook is where I do most of my stuff, as you know, and I see you a lot on Facebook. Instagram, I'm there. And then a week goes by. Oh, I haven't posted on Instagram this week, so I'm not constant. TikTok, I'm like, I'm just not fond of the app. I'm just not.
I'm not quite sure it's like age appropriate for me.
Yeah, me neither. Some of the stuff I'm seeing, I'm like, whoa.
There are a lot of younger folk on it.
I agree with you. Twitter, I have nothing to do with. It's just too much drama on Twitter. So yeah,
Agreed.
Facebook and Instagram is pretty much, and Pinterest. I love Pinterest.
I love to go. I don't really do anything on Pinterest, but I love to look at images on Pinterest. I
Well,
probably
Pinterest, I have a website just like you. I get I want to say at least a third of my daily traffic from Pinterest.
wow.
And it's because of the pins I post. If you ever think about it, reach out to me because I do have an author's board that has, I want to say 100,000 plus pins and
Wow.
45,000 members. And you can pin there every day with links to your books, links to Facebook, wherever you want to send links to. And I'll post my books in there. And that's where I get my traffic to my website.
Oh, that's amazing.
So keep it in mind,
check
it's the
that out.
author readers writing board. It's a community board, so other people can come in and pin. And pretty much, you place a pin, you share someone else's pin.
Nice.
That's how it works. But keep it in mind, if ever you want to
I will.
join up, let me know, and I'll send you the link. I'd love to have you.
Thank you. Yeah, please send.
Yeah, and I wanted to. I see questions, and then I get talking, and I miss it. But there was one I wanted to pop up. Give me just a minute. Just a minute. Okay, here it is. This is a good question I wanted to put up. It's from Tina. Do you have any advice for a person just starting to write?
Gosh. So for a person just starting to write, yes, I think that you just have to commit the time to do it. For me, when I moved from Tallahassee, Florida, and I want to say hello to Peggy Patterson. I just see that she.
Oh, Peggy's here. Hi, Peggy.
Hello, hey Peggy. Thank you for popping in. For me, writing is something that I'd always wanted to do, and I took classes in college. I always loved my high school writing classes. But when I moved in 2000, I had this. I could sort of feel the clock ticking, and I had this vision of myself being a much older man at the end of life and not having tried, and being very regretful about not having tried to write. So I actually joined Atlanta Writers Club. So I think that what's critical for someone who's starting out writing, and for someone who is more seasoned, is to have a community of individuals who have your best interest at heart, who are at various levels. I always say, never be the smartest or most talented person in the room, because you'll never grow.
Good
So
advice.
surround yourself with people that are brilliant, who have your best interest at heart. If you're going to write, you need to read a lot. You'll find much inspiration in the work of others, and it's just the act of writing. And then maybe join a critique group as well.
Perfect. Great advice. Is there with you being on your second book, like you said, this is your debut, so it's a learning curve for you all on this journey. With your second book, is there something that pops out in your head that you won't do that you did with the first book? Maybe, something you learned?
What I learned I do think that the work will probably be a little darker than the Cicada Tree. I think one of the things that I learned just from a personal journey perspective is not to compare your journey as a writer to that of other writers, because it'll just drive you mad.
That's good advice.
We all have our own unique path.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you have to be supportive of other writers. You have to celebrate their successes with them. You have to put that positive energy out into the world, and it will find its way back to you. But I do think that you need to be supportive of others, and you need to help share there's room for all of us.
There is
out there, certainly.
And we all have our own voice. Don't try and mimic another
Yes.
author.
Right,
Totally.
exactly. And I think that sometimes, if let's say that you're just starting out, and there's an author that you like, I think that mimicry in the beginning is okay, because it will help lead you to your own voice. So if you admire F. Scott Fitzgerald and you love the cadence of his writing, and you want to emulate that, well, you're not going to be F. Scott Fitzgerald,
Right.
but perhaps along that journey you will find your way to yourself, I think.
Good advice. That's perfect. Read a lot of his and then find your own voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, here's a question from Karen. She's asking, are the characters based on family and friends?
So it's interesting. I went home. So I grew up in a small town called Cairo, Georgia, and I had an event early on after the Cicada Tree released at the Roddenberry Memorial Library, the library that I went to when I was a boy, all the way through high school. And we had a great turnout. At that event, there were old high school English teachers of mine, family members, classmates I had not seen since 1987.
Oh, wow.
So one of the things that the interviewer asked me, so there were a few things that I cherry picked from Cairo, Georgia, and put into Providence. Like there was a pickle factory.
Okay.
I make a reference to Joanne Woodward, who grew up over in Thomasville, Georgia, just 30 minutes away from Cairo. So there were a few things that I referenced. So the librarian went down and she listed all of those things, and she said, "So what people want to know is Providence, Georgia, Cairo?" And of course it wasn't. But I did sort of cherry pick some things for characters. I really don't have any characters that are based on family or friends, but I did use a family name. Annalise's father's name is Claxton, and my great-grandfather, my mother's grandfather, was named Claxton, and he had a lot of drinking issues, as does Claxton in the book. It was just sort of something I wanted to do because I mean, alcoholism in families permeates, it has a great impact on the children. It just casts a dark shadow. Exactly. So I did that for my mom, and I think she appreciated it. Mistletoe Plantation that I referenced in the book that's owned by the Mayfields, there actually is a mistletoe plantation on or around close to Cairo, Georgia. So I have a family connection to mistletoe. So the mistletoe plantation that I describe in the book is nothing like the mistletoe plantation that exists in real life. But my Gwaltney family, were farmers, and they had a farm years and years and years ago that adjoined Mistletoe Plantation. So the owners of Mistletoe Plantation purchased the Gwaltney farm and rolled the land into the plantation. And my family took that money and bought a new farm out in the country of Grady County, in the county that Cairo was in. So I did. So there were some little things, like some little Easter eggs like that I put into the book. I think that my characters, in some way, though, all of them have elements of myself in all of them, I think.
That was going to be my next question. Was there any elements of it? Because I always say you will find bits and pieces of the author in a book. It's just what we do, whether it be accidental and you don't realize it until after you've written. My dad, he loved Guinness, and I swear almost every character drank Guinness in his books. And I'm like, Dad, you need to find another drink.
Branch out.
But I always believe that there's little traits that the author would drop in a book of themselves.
It would be hard not to. I think that if you want, like the Cicada Tree and Annalise Newell, of course, she's an 11-year-old girl. I mean, none of that is representative of my life. But if you know me, in a way, you do tell your story through fiction. It could be an allegory and metaphor, but you're threaded through it somehow.
Yeah, we weave our ways in there. We really do. Here's a question from Renee. She's asking, do any of your family members read your books before they are published and give their input?
Good question. So not really. So I think that my mother, when I was writing the Cicada Tree, she knew that I was writing the book, and she saw a few things here. There, I think she was really nervous what I was writing, and that somehow, I was like telling family secrets.
Oh.
So I didn't really give them. No one really knew a whole lot about the book, other than my mom, and she knew just a little bit. But didn't really. I think it's hard for me. I don't really trust input for those who love me best and know me
That makes
best,
sense. That makes
because
sense.
yeah, not that I don't care what they think, but I don't know that you're necessarily going to have quite the critical ear and
Won't be
eye
as honest.
from a
It won't
family
be.
member,
Won't be
right?
as honest. Are there any other writers in your family?
No. So I think that my mom, I think, could have been a writer. I think that she was fascinated by the idea of it. She enjoyed writing in school and essays, but I'm the oldest of four boys. There was, a lot to take care of in the home. Never quiet
With
in our
four
home
boys, I can
with
imagine.
four boys. I know. So she was cook and cleaner and taxi cab driver. So she stayed very busy. I think that she could have been a really wonderful writer. And I suggested to her, a few years back that maybe she, consider taking a
Does,
few classes.
does she read
So
a lot?
she does. She does read, and
Mm-hmm.
she loved the Cicada Tree. I was really nervous when she was reading the final version. My brother Chris, and his wife both read it together, and they loved the book. So it was interesting because he was so fascinated by the story and just had very in-depth questions about the characters and the process. So that though I don't get their input about the story, I very much get their support.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I have a question for you from Tammy. I'm going to put this one up. What are your thoughts on autobiography on your own life?
I don't think that anything has happened that extraordinary that people would want to read about.
Well, you'd be surprised. We all have a story.
I mean, maybe on down the road, perhaps. Um, but in a way, I think that fiction is autobiographical in a way.
Yeah, my trilogy is based on my life, all three of them, and everything in the books happened.
Yeah,
And it was only supposed to be one book, and it turned into three. But
like I say.
just from what you've told us of your family background and the farms, it's all fascinating. Growing up on a farm and born in the Netherlands, you don't remember, but I bet you have a good story in there.
Maybe one day, maybe one day, I would. It's funny because that's one of the reasons why I wasn't comfortable writing the first book that Cicada Tree morphed into. I was telling the story from an 11-year-old boy's perspective, and
Right.
it just seemed too much like me. Um, and I thought, no, I don't think I don't know that I want to tell the story yet.
Switch gears.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a few more questions, and we have to wrap it up. This time is going by so quickly. I'm sorry, no name. No, that's the wrong one. Here it is. How many covers did you see before choosing the one on the Cicada Tree?
God, so the story. So I was most terrified of getting an ugly cover. I was, and so in my contract it said that I could provide input and ideas and images, but ultimately the publisher would reserve the right to make the final selection. So I took matters into my own hands, and so when coming up with ideas or prototypes, I actually worked with a professional cover designer to come up with 3 options that I submitted as my ideas. and and this was, and they loved this cover so much. The only note that the publisher had was that they wanted my name a little larger, and they wanted the title a little larger. And so we took those notes and we sent it back. And so the publisher got lucky. They were able to just accept the prototype. And this is the
It's a
selection.
brilliant cover. I love the yellow. The yellow just makes it pop.
Thank you. Yeah, I love the cover. I was very pleased with it. So in total, there were 3 options from which to choose, and this was the winner.
And it's perfect. Real quick, the Cicada Tree, you mentioned that in the book you're writing now, I'm sorry, Sing Down the Moon.
Sing Down the Moon.
Sing Down the Moon. You have that title. Was the Cicada Tree have that title when you first began writing?
Yeah, so from the very beginning, the Cicada, that was the title. It never changed.
Oh, okay. I was just curious because you had mentioned about your titles. Robert, this has been a fantastic chat. I
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed. I do want to talk really quick about the giveaway. You're generously
Sure.
doing a giveaway. So I'm going to hand it back over to you for that. And you can tell us what the giveaway is.
Yes. So, Tina is going to make the selection, announce it later, but you will get a signed copy of the Cicada Tree.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I would tag you in the group. I can't tag on my author page. Can you tag anyone on your author page?
So I only have the one Facebook page. So I'm
Oh.
only So I've not transitioned into an author page yet.
Oh, okay. Because I can tag you in the group. So I'll go ahead and do that in a couple of hours. I'm also doing my regular giveaway, which I do on every chat, and I'm giving away a $5 Amazon gift card. Most of you know how to enter for that one. You need to go to my author page and share this video, share it with your friends, share it in your favorite book clubs, share it wherever you would like, and tag me. And that puts you in the $5 drawing for the Amazon gift card. And again, I'll announce that with the Robert's giveaway. And Robert, I wanted to ask you if you have time to just scroll through our comments after our chat. Not immediately, but any
Sure.
questions that we missed and you'd like to answer.
Absolutely. I would love
And
to.
leave any links you would like in the comments, like links to your
Certainly.
books. I think I put the website up in the text, but you can feel free to put any links you want. And be sure to check out the author page and the group for comments.
Thank you.
This has been fantastic, and good luck with your next book.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
And come back when you have that next book out. I want to do some more talking.
It's a date.
Okay. Thank you, Robert, so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Everyone, take care. Good night.